What's going on, Center City Church?
You already know.
Well, welcome. I know it's a little different, but this week we are in the middle of our big summer camp for Urban Promise. And our auditorium is being taken over by a bunch of elementary school students from the area.
So welcome to our office.
Yeah, office / meeting space /
green room on Sundays.
Summer podcast studio.
Yeah. Welcome.
That's
We're
right.
We're glad you're here.
We are glad. We're excited about James. We just finished week 8. Golly.
I know.
This has been a great study.
It really has been.
Challenging.
Yes.
But
difficult.
Good. Yeah.
But good. Yeah. So if you're new here, basically what we do is we get together and chat a little bit about the message on the previous Sunday. I get to ask some questions and we just kind of talk about what comes up. And in this series on James, he's not holding back anything. So we've had some good conversations. And this week I'm expecting a good one again. And again, I feel like we're attacking social media, but we're not attacking social media. I think it's just so many of us live our lives out, like the way that we interact with people publicly is through Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and probably other ones that I've never even heard of because I'm super cool, guys. But we talked a lot about how James warns against being quick to judge. You've got your Bible in front of you. I don't actually remember exactly what he said, but how convenient.
Look at that.
What a good pastor.
I'm trying to remember what.
Is at the end of chapter 4.
Yes, we are. Verse 11. Yep, is where we start. So he starts with this idea, don't speak evil against each other, dear brothers and sisters. If you criticize and judge others, then you're criticizing and judging God's law. But your job is to obey the law, not to judge whether or not it applies to you.
Yeah. And so I feel like this has been a problem for humanity forever because I don't know. I know my own heart and I tend to make judgments in my head really quickly before I even realize that I've done that. Just kind of trying to put people in boxes of, will I get along with this person? Will I not get along with this person? But social media has kind of given us this freedom to get rid of what would have been like niceties or politeness and really make these brash judgments about people.
Yeah. So remember, James is writing, we're talking a couple hundred years ago.
So he didn't have Facebook?
No, I don't think he would have imagined a world where people would be looking into boxes and they would magically communicate, these messages from one side of the world to the other in 0.2 seconds. Otherwise, we get frustrated because the internet's not fast enough. But really what he's talking about is that natural inclination to communication. It's a part of who we are as people. We've been communicating since the beginning of time. Now, the methodology of our communication has changed, but the tried and true truth about how to communicate really hasn't. Mm-hmm. And that's what James is kind of at the heart of this. So it feels like we're attacking social media or that James is writing this, literally after a Facebook tyrant. But the truth is, really what it is that our methodology has changed culturally. So it still applies, just that for so many of us, the truth, 20 years ago, I don't think any of us could have imagined it's so different. Mm-hmm. And today I'm separated. I'm sitting in a room by myself. It's just a lot easier to be a turd.
Yeah.
Can I say that? Is that?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
And turd is a funny word.
Good. I'm glad you think it's funny.
Now I won't be able to regain composure the whole time because I'm like a 3-year-old boy.
There you go.
I just hung out with my 3-year-old nephew for a whole week, so potty jokes are on my mind. But as you were talking, I kind of realized in some ways we do this to ourselves. Like we're particular about what we choose to wear, whether that's brands or just like what style it is or how we do our hair or our makeup, what stickers we put on our cars, or even for me, it's my water bottle. In some ways, I feel like we get comfortable in this idea that I want you to be able to judge who I am based on this appearance, whether it's social media or not. I mean, I think social media kind of blows that up and gives us even more opportunity to just present a certain aspect of ourselves. But it's almost like it can be nerve-wracking to think that someone can't put me in a box. I want them to know what box I belong in. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. And remember, the funny thing about social media is it's algorithm driven. Mm-hmm. So you scream out about something that you're anti, And there's a really good chance that the vast majority of people who read what you're against are also against that thing. Or you're being fed to people who are easily angered by what you wrote because of the nature of the algorithm. So really, it does become this thing where we're screaming at ourselves, really. Yeah. And remember, James is being written to the church for the church, and specifically for Jews that have been scattered, right? We talked about that week 1. So really, this is him saying when you don't judge one another, he's talking about internally. Like, be careful to criticize internally. Make sure that when we talk, when there's communication, there's love, there's hope, there's grace being communicated. And, we just don't see it no more.
Yeah. So that's kind of like how we think as people, but we know all throughout the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, God talks about how he doesn't judge by outward appearance. He can see into our hearts and just see more than we're able to see. Will you talk a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, so the way that God is able to see, he sees us like nobody else can, right? Like, so as a hobbyist or an artist, for lack of a better term there, every time I put a stroke of paint on a canvas or are pushing and pulling a piece of clay, or every time I'm, putting down a stroke of spray paint, in each of those instances, I have an idea and intention behind each of those strokes, each of those moves. So that art piece, I know intimately because I understand what I was thinking while I was sitting down. The scripture gives us a really good sense of how God formed us. And that intentionality means that every part of you was intentional. And then because we have a God who exists in today, tomorrow, and yesterday, he's able to not just form you for the moment, but he's forming you, seeing you complete, knowing the journey that you would take to get there, and creating us in a way that we're able to navigate all of these things, which means ultimately no one can know us like he knows us.
Yeah, we can't even know ourselves like he knows us.
Not at that level. And it messes our head up a little bit. Specifically that idea, again, that he not only formed us, while he was forming us, he was actively working in our present, actively working in our future, all for his namesake and glory. So, yeah, he knows us in a way that we can't know. And he knows everyone in that manner. So the idea that we can judge without that type of insight, James is saying, is silly.
Mm-hmm. It is silly. I feel like we can just drop the mic right there. Well, don't be silly.
Don't drop the mic. We just set it up.
This is our second time around, guys, because mic problems.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. So where is James going after this? You don't have to preach this Sunday's message, but kind of where are we going as we head out of this passage?
So the warning to the rich. So he spends a moment talking about how wealth corrupts. And I know you're probably thinking, I'm going to stay home from church that week because if you look at my bank account, he ain't talking to me. But he really gets into things like self-indulgence. And really, as I was even studying this week and with the preaching team kind of walking through some of this, what we discovered is that James is talking to a people who had the capacity to choose not to work in a moment and would choose to do something else that's self-indulging. And when you think about it, really, that's all of us right now. Outside of maybe that, there's a group of people who can't. And I totally understand that for those who might be displaced or struggling financially. But the average American right now should be able to glean some deep truths from the beginning of chapter 5 of James.
Yeah. So it feels like, as challenging as it is, I went back this week and actually read the entire book of James, which was kind of cool to do again after spending so much time. I'm going to try to do that every week for the rest of the series. But a lot of what he says is challenging. And it seems to be like, I kind of picture James as this like grumpy, just figure it out kind of guy. But when you read it after you've spent time really thinking through all of it, there's so much love in what he's saying because he's kind of pushing us out of where we think we're comfortable into what it looks like to be free of these things, like the need to be right. That's when I've had to kind of go back over and over again, slow to speak, quick to listen, because I like to have both the first and the last word. But really everything that he's talking about, not judging people, not, living in your wealth and numbing your activities with self-indulgence or whatever you'll talk about on Sunday. But really, this whole book is pushing us to live that life that God created us for. It's just a little painful to kind of get through the letting go to the freedom on the other side.
Yeah, Sunday, the way we framed it is, if you can deal with the momentary pain, there's healing on the other side. Even in this, we go from warning against riches to patience and endurance to prayer to then evangelism is how he ends the book. And all of it, like moving forward, it's all really, here's your charge. Here's what, God gives us in order to kind of navigate the charge. Here's this beautiful act of prayer. So we have been slow rolling James intentionally. And sometimes it feels a little bit like, oh, this is painful. But when you read it in its entirety and understand what James is trying to say as a whole, the objective is for the betterment of the church.
Yeah, absolutely. So we would love to see you guys on Sunday, but if you are single, we would love to see you on Saturday. It's finally here.
It's finally here.
Very good singleness. I feel like we've been talking about it almost 3 months now.
It's been a minute.
But we've arrived.
I can't wait. Conversations around the table. So the objective is to inspire, to encourage, but also like to create a sense of just really inspiration for the next season that's ahead. That this gift of singleness that God gives us, what does it mean and how to navigate it?
Yeah. So there will be some teaching that we'll be doing, but there's also going to be a lot of time to talk around the table, get to know other people. Our hope is really that you will leave really our promise. That's what you said the last round that we recorded this.
Our promise.
That you'll leave encouraged and inspired to go out and just live for God. Which sounds very Christian-y and pastor-y, but guys, there's nothing better.
Absolutely.
So we would love to see you. If you are in the Center City family, you should have received this link in your inbox. If you have not, or if you're not on our email list yet, we would still love to have you. You can email hello@centercity.church, and we will get you everything that you need to be able to register. But that will be Saturday the 16th at 10 a.m.
Can't wait. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah. So we'll see you this weekend.